NWO Sports Podcast. Here's your host, Logan Bailey.
Welcome to the NWO Sports Podcast, football edition, brought to you by our primary sponsor, 3Chord. I'm your host, Logan Bailey, and joined today once again by Keith Brown, Tony Fairchild, and AJ Fairchild. So it's nice seeing you guys again for another week.
Always.
Greatest Tuesday of the fall season.
Oh, my gosh. Well, Logan, you brought it up. It's week 7. Holy moly. The season's flying by.
Yeah. It seems like the other day we're here in early August and kind of got you guys together. Like, you guys want to do this football show? And you guys all jumped on board. I feel like it's been pretty successful ever since.
This is one of the favorite part of the week, really. Tuesday and Friday and college football on Saturday.
It's good. I want to give you guys a shout out for being patient with me, coaching 8th grade football and coming back from Ayersville and had to get stuck behind a 6-mile long train. I don't know. I keep exaggerating as we get here, but it was long.
Every time you mention it, it's a little bit longer. It's another mile added.
But I appreciate you guys waiting on me. But I tell you what, we talked about this tonight at the field. It seemed like it was just a couple of days ago, and it was 95 degrees, and everybody's sweating their butts off. And and then tonight it was cool and breezy, and I mean, it's still sunny, but it was cool and breezy, and more like football weather here.
Yep. All those people that were wanting the fall weather was kind of like the switch was turned like instantly. Okay, summer, fall.
Yeah,
it was.
Making fun of Lieb, because Lieb's always said that watching our football broadcast, but I walked up there as Lieb was handing out food after the game. He's like, ooh. I'm like, I'm not used to this yet. I'm like, yeah, kind of like he said, just one day it's 90, the next day it's 60. So
it was nice too this weekend because, I mean, like you said, it's true fall weather. And Saturday, we ended up going to my parents' house and we had a cookout. We put on we had this big 10-foot inflatable screen and put on. Wow. Even though I'm a Michigan fan, we put on and watched the Buckeyes play outside on a big projector. So it was pretty good. It was pretty cool, and glad it's fall weather finally.
Yep.
All right, let's go ahead. Let's look again at how we did for last week's picks. So for the first time this year in season, we had a 4-way tie last week between myself, Keith, AJ, and Bryce, who all went 15-4. Tony was left out from the leaders last week as he went 13-6. So sorry about your luck, Tony.
Jeez, at least I'm better than 500.
That is true. For the running total on the year, Keith remains in first with a 94-26 record, which is pretty impressive. AJ's in second with 92-28 record. Tony's still in third with an 89-31 record. I'm in fourth with an 88-32 record, which, Tony, I'm coming right up behind you. So you better watch out, man. I'm coming for that third place spot. And Bryce is still in fifth with an 82-38 pick'em record. So I was talking to Bryce today. Actually, I called him right before the podcast because he needed his picks in, and he said Bryce likes to stir up some things. He said sometimes he'll just look at it and see all the picks that we have, and he'll just throw in an opposite. So that's Bryce for you. But
that's awesome. That works out as long as they work. That's kind of what I did with Hilltop, and I kind of got spanked. So, oh well.
Sometimes you win and you lose.
Yeah. Hilltop helped me out one week, and not so much this week.
All right, let's go ahead. Let's look into some Week 6 game recaps. So we'll go ahead. We'll look at some of the top games from Week 6. Let's go ahead and we'll start. Let's look at the NWO Sports Game of the Week from Week 6. Lipsick at Columbus Grove. Columbus Grove ended up winning that one pretty big, 23-0. And at halftime, the game was only 6-0, and Grove was leading. But again, Columbus Grove really stepped up. Their offense kind of got back under themselves, and their defense played well, put up a shutout. And again, I mean, I've said it multiple times throughout the year. I mean, some of the best linebacker crew with A.J. Schaefer and Tad Cook. I mean, those two guys, there's some tough-nosed, hard-nosed athletes at linebacker. But running back Trenton Barraza from Columbus Grove, he had another game with 100-plus rushing yards. So, guys, thoughts on the NWO Sports Game of the Week from last week?
I caught a little bit of, they had a broadcast on TV, so I caught a little bit yesterday as we was kind of watching it, and I was kind of surprised when the final score came across. It was 23-0, and some of the stats they were rattling off in the game, and Lipstick had averaged 450 yards of total offense and over 200 yards of rushing. I was kind of surprised that they got goose egged.
Yeah, I mean, you told me that beforehand, and I was like, wow, 450 yards of offense. I mean, in Lipstick's schedule, they've played some tough teams too.
Absolutely,
they played Liberty Benton, Pandora, Gilboa. I mean, even if you look at some of the lesser opponents that they played, for them to still be averaging that per game, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
That's one of those shocking things when you, as a whole, you look at Leipzig's record and you say 3-3, but then you look at their schedule and you're like, well, yeah.
I mean, I look at Leipzig's record and I see that 3-3, and I don't think that accurately represents them.
Right.
No, definitely not.
I think that. I mean, I still think that they're a very good ball club, but like you said, Keith, I mean, they played a tough schedule to start the season. But again, I think Columbus Grove is kind of rebounding too.
Yes.
I think too, Columbus Grove, the big thing with them is just getting that offense rolling. We know their defense has always been good, but I feel like sometimes that offense sputters out, and that's what kind of holds them back. Right. But I think if they can continue that, I mean, they could potentially do some damage come playoff time.
Absolutely.
All right, let's go ahead. Let's look at the next game. Patrick Henry at Bryan, and wow, what a game. I would have liked to be at this one. Patrick Henry ended up losing to Bryan 35-42, and Bryan was actually up 28-7 at halftime. And we saw that halftime score while we were broadcasting the Tenora game on Tenora Rams Live. And I mean, we looked at it, we had to do a double take because it was like kind of shocking that it was so out of hand like that. We would have thought it had been a lot closer, but man, Patrick Henry really rallied in that second half, and they came up just short. And I believe they even had, Keith, did you say like a chance towards the end there?
I believe they had the chance to tie it on their final drive and came up short.
Okay. And again, I mean, what a performance by Nash, Meyer, Landon Johnson, and Patrick Henry to kind of lead back that team. Again, we'll kind of mention their stats later because as some nominees for Player of the Week. But also, too, with Sam Harrell from Bryan, I mean, he was just an absolute beast rushing the ball. And quarterback Jace Kepler, again, another outstanding performance this week. And those two guys really contributed to that win. But, I mean, talk about how big that win is for even Bryan to stay in the NWOAL race.
Right. And we talked about that earlier in the season. I believe AJ kept talking about Bryan a little bit, being that sleeper team in the NWOAL, and and then here they are stepping up and knocking somebody out a little bit. No, I don't think anybody's out of it in the NWOAL yet. Obviously Liberty Center is the front runner now, but it's just kind of a huge kind of like, wow, man, Bryan took a step forward in knocking off PH.
Yeah, Bryan's one of those kind of Jekyll and Hyde teams. You don't really know what to expect week from week. They come off back-to-back losses, Archibald and Delta. Then you come out and you see that halftime score, like Logan said, we're all looking at the phone like 28-0 at the half,
right?
Or close to the half, I guess. But yeah, it's wow. You didn't really, Coach Redhead.
I mean, what momentum though does that give Bryan? I mean, you lose to Archibald, or you lose to Archibald. You lose to Delta. I mean, as a team, you got to think you're kind of down some, but for you to come out at home and pull off a performance like this, and Patrick Henry, we've talked about him throughout the year. I mean, they're a good team.
Absolutely.
And for them to come out and hold on to a win against someone like that, I mean, that's got to be huge riding into the last couple of weeks of the regular season for the Bryan Golden Bears.
Yeah, played Liberty Center this week, so another jump right back in the fire.
Yeah, when I first saw that score, it didn't dawn on me that it was Bryan that had 28. For some reason, I was thinking you guys were saying that Patrick Henry was up 28-7. I'm like, okay, that's kind of getting away from it a little bit. Then I realized, I was like, well, you said Bryan was winning that. Wow, that's a way different ball game than I was kind of expecting. I thought it was going to be a lot closer, a lot tighter. I thought Patrick Henry was going to come out, which it ended up being a lot tighter, but not the way I was expecting it to be.
I totally agree with all your comments.
I mean, looking at Bryan's schedule, their losses were to Van Wert and Archibald, and then they lost the one to Delta last prior week. But yeah, I mean, so they're and they're playing and they're scoring some points. But I mean, you never know. I mean, it's just that's why you play the games, I guess, every week, right?
I mean, you look at your losses too, Tony. I mean, Van Wert has one loss.
Yeah.
Who else did you? Delta has 2 losses now.
Yeah. Archibald
has 1 loss. I mean, there you go, right there. I mean, that's a pretty tough schedule.
Yep.
So they're not losing the games that they quote unquote are supposed to. I mean, they're competing, but they're not losing games that they should not lose.
Right.
Let's go ahead. We'll move on to the next game. Elida at Defiance. Defiance ended up winning 31-14. And again, Defiance just continues to roll this year. Travis Cooper continues to do a nice job and get those kids to play for him well. And Defiance actually outgained Elida 334 total yards to Elida's 178 total yards. But again, Elida was without their starting quarterback due to an injury from week 4. And last week, talking about the previous week before they played Defiance, that starting quarterback for Elida was moved to wide receiver for the game. So Elida ended up going with a sophomore quarterback quarterback for the game and getting his first start. But again, they had some athletes step up, especially they were missing a two-way starter in Christian Camaso due to injury. And again, the kids came out and played. And Elida, they had some wins under their belt too. So Defiance is making a case for themselves in the WBL. So thoughts on this game?
Yeah, one time Elida, I believe, was 4-0 on the season.
Yeah.
So. Which I think most of us here have been mostly positive for Defiance and Coach Cooper on the season, especially the last couple of weeks. Even last week, I kind of stepped back and said, hey, if you step back and look at Defiance's schedule moving forward, you could look at a good 7-3, record here. And every week that Defiance comes out, they just seem to be building more and more momentum. And you have very good offensive threat. I mean, Zipfel, Castile, and Craig Nichols also back there now. So Defiance has a really good program. Cooper has everything going in the right direction this year, and I mean, nothing but positive thoughts and play coming from Defiance.
And look at, like you said, Elida, I believe was at 4-0 at one point. Last week they were 4-1 going into the Defiance game, but look at how many computer points it gets Defiance too. I mean, there's been that talk about Defiance possibly hosting a home game come the playoff time, and all they got to do is make one of the top 8 spots, and I mean that's a lot of computer points right there. And say Elida continues to get some more wins and against some bigger schools, I mean that keeps moving Defiance up the list. So I mean I would say that keeps looking, the chances of Defiance hosting keep looking better and better as the weeks go on.
Yep.
Yeah, so you're about to look it up, right, Keith?
Right now they're 7th.
Okay,
so they would host.
They're in there.
Yep.
Yeah, I kind of cracked Defiance for that. It was a hot take of Defiance to host a game. I said, Defiance isn't going to be hosting if it's a Division 7 game, right? But no, Defiance is, again, we just kind of see it in these, like, we talk about the front runners, like the Liberty Centers and the Archbolds, but in Van Wert, but then you got these sleeper teams like Bryan and Defiance that are just going through and just taking care of business. And next thing you know, you look and you're like, wow, Ayersville's another one, that's talking about the other teams. And all of a sudden here comes these guys kind of out of the shadows like, hey, we're still here. We haven't gone anywhere. And Defiance has been doing a great job and just kind of keep plugging away and getting wins. And their schedule looks pretty nice, for the next couple weeks at least. And, they end with Wapakoneta, but
Tony, I forgot you made that comment on the hot takes.
Yes, I did.
Some Defiance fans are really looking at you now.
Hey, if that sparked them, hey, that's good. That's what I said. I'm just kidding, man. It's all in good fun.
Yeah, exactly.
As Tony said, you look at Defiance's next 3 games at Bath, home versus Slida, home versus OG, and then you wind up with Wapak. I mean, that's that could be, that's a 3-1 possible final 4 games right there.
Definitely. Let's go ahead. We'll move on to the next game. We'll move on to the game that we were at broadcasting. Tenora at Wayne Trace. Tenora ended up being victorious 13-6. And who wants to start this one?
Just Javen Gaines. I mean, that's really all. That's about all you can say right there. Javen's first game back since his wrestling injury at the state wrestling tournament, and boy, he just came out dominant. Just
what a game changer though, having him back. I mean, as long as he stays healthy. I mean, didn't you say he had? We watched it, but I don't know official statistics. He said a couple pair sacks, and
I think he had 6 tackles. This is unofficial. Six tackles and 2 sacks.
And a handful, probably close to 4 or 5 tackles for loss, maybe. I don't know. I mean, he was just ripping through that offensive line, and I mean, especially like we saw too. That game was a true defensive battle. There was not much offense from either side. So
that was one of those old school heavyweight fights that like your dad or something used to watch back in the day, like Evander Holyfield and Mike Tyson or something. It was like both teams. Tenora got out to a 13-0 lead, and you're finally thinking, hey, offense is clicking after that fantastic play by Dominic Graziani.
Yeah.
Like he scrambled to the near side, then came back to the far side, hit Brandon Edwards out there and took it in for the touchdown, but 13-0, and then Wayne Trace got that block punt right before the half, about 3 minutes to go or so.
Special teams was huge in that game too. We talked about that. There was the block punt return for a touchdown, and blocked extra point, and there was one other big play too. I can't remember what the third one was, but regardless, I mean, it showed us again and reminded us how important special teams is for these games. And we talk. I mean, you have offense, defense, and your special teams. There's 3 parts to the game, and you got to be on your A game in all 3.
Yeah, I mean, the Rams defense has been pretty dominant outside of the game 1 versus Liberty Center. Then you look at the final stats again. Rams limit Wayne Trace to under 100 yards. I think they had 86 total yards. So you get gains back in the flow along with everybody else you have on that Rams defense, and more it's just they're just steaming ahead. So,
Tony, you have any or AJ?
It's just last week during the podcast, I believe I said something about Wayne Trace has this curse to them this year for any opponents coming into their field that play them. Seems like turnovers are a problem, errors, like mistakes are made all over the place, and we saw a lot of that in that game. I think Tenora had a fumble. Wayne Trace blocked one of their punts. Wayne Trace had one interception.
Actually, Brandon Edwards had that one down on the goal line where he kind of he mossed somebody, basically jumped up over the kid and kind of actually looked like it got deflected into his arms, kind of like a pinball effect, but it was a heck of a play by Brandon.
Yeah, so it wasn't one of the worst games we've seen with Wayne Trace, where they had, I think there was 9 turnovers in one of their games, right back and forth. Yep. So it wasn't the worst situation, but it was definitely something to mention going into that game. You got to be careful with some of these mistakes because it just seems to be happening constantly when whoever plays Wayne Trace.
I just, Keith, what was the Rams' total offensive numbers? Do you know?
Offhand, I don't know. I can get it real quick.
I do remember though in the second half, Sonora came out and had, I believe, 37 total yards of offense.
Exactly.
Yeah. It was. I think it was just without getting in depth research. I think we had about 150 yards at the half. Okay. And most of those were rushing. We had that touchdown, that 33-yard touchdown.
So probably roughly about 180 or so.
Right.
Yeah. I'm gonna talk about the elephant in the room and just Sonora's offense just sputtering. And it seemed like with Graziani there was kind of a spark, and and Keith mentioned the great play he made. I don't think any of us really know how he got loose, but all of a sudden there's 2 guys there, and all of a sudden he's going the other way. I'm like, what? How do they not tackle him? But he kept his eyes downfield, did a great job getting the ball to Brandon, and Brandon did the rest, and ran it in. But it just seemed like after that, then he had the mistake and he tripped and fell on his own feet, and then we didn't see him anymore the rest of the game. And and that was a low snap on a shotgun snap, and I think he kind of just, in my opinion, I think he panicked, tried to get out, kind of tripped over his own feet, and that was the last we saw of him. And I just think I don't know. I think Tenora's got to do something different offensively. It's just not working. I guess I don't want to talk about it too much and make people mad, but we've said it from week 1, and we said it week 2, and we said it week 3, and we just keep talking about the same thing. Right. Their offense, I think the defense is keeping them in ball games. When you only allow people to score 6 points, and you can find a way to put points on the board. Yep. And defensively, we didn't allow Wayne Trace to score. Right? I mean, it was a blocked punt, scoop and score. But so, defense is going to keep you in ball games, but. It's just like in baseball. Your pitcher can throw a shutout, but if you don't put runs on the board, you're not going to win either, right? It's going to be a tie. So we got to find a way to get points on the board, and it seems like Tenora's offense is doing just enough. And as we get down the stretch here, I don't think just enough is going to be enough.
I could not have said what you just said any better than that. And we've talked at length about this issue, and as a coaching staff, I mean, you got to be critical of yourself. If you go through, you're over the halfway point in the season and your offense is still sputtering, you got to be self-critical, and you got to put the best players in those positions that are going to give you the best chance to win. Like when I was at college at the University of Findlay, our coaches didn't care if you were an All-American, and actually we did. We had an All-American offensive lineman, and one of the hardest decisions my coach ever made was replacing him for someone else, but he believed in his heart that was his best chance that season to let us lead to a win. And I mean, he benched an All-American and replaced him with a different offensive lineman. And how tough of a decision would that be as a coach? I mean, he still, to this day, he wonders if that was the best, but he knew something had to be done at the time. Yeah. And I think too, I mean, you're putting up 180 yards of offense, 37 in the second half. Yeah. And we talked to the quarterback situation. Right. You got to figure that out because, and we've talked to, As far as Gavin Eckert, he's a great athlete.
Yeah, absolutely.
I cannot say enough about him. And as a defensive back, I've liked him the last few years. Last year, honestly, him and Cole Comiso, probably one of the better two defensive backs, 1-2 punch for in the area. Yep. But I think almost move him somewhere else and put him in a position to make some plays. But I really like Graziani. I know he slipped and fell in that one play, but to me, that's not enough
especially after
to bench him the rest of the game.
After he made the other play.
Yeah.
Right. And the thing is, too, he's just a sophomore. So, I mean, you get someone like that in your program, get a couple games under his belt. I mean, you're looking at the future of the program here.
Right,
I mean, you're looking in for
absolutely.
years to come. You're not just looking for this year. And again, put Gavin in some places where he can thrive
Absolutely.
and catch the ball. I mean, he's a good receiver, too, we've seen in the past. Yeah. So I think, like you said, Tony, I mean, they got to get the offense figured out because you start playing some tough games down the stretch. You got Ayersville, you got Edgerton. And then you make playoffs, your offense has to do way more than enough,
right?
Especially in Division 5, Region 18, and we've seen some of those teams that are in there. So
I mean, you're going to be facing the Liberty Centers and the Archbolds, and and I honestly, the Liberty Center game, we ran the shotgun a little bit there, and I look at my perfect thing would be put Graziani at quarterback. And put Eckert out there to catch the ball. I mean, we always talk about put your jackrabbits out there and let them run and find somebody open. And I think that would, you could really spark something there. Getting Gavin, like you said, in a different position. I just think it looked good when he was in there, and then as soon as he came out, the offense just kind of fell off the table.
Yep, I agree, and I think it just makes him more multidimensional too. Right. I mean, I believe at times they become very one-dimensional, and everyone and their brother knows. And we kind of saw it with Wayne Trace. They made adjustments at halftime, and their linebackers were filling those holes at the line right away. I mean, there was no time spent because they did not respect the pass at all. So
absolutely.
I think going forward, you got to open that passing game up and have someone back there that teams can respect. But again, both kids we talked about, nothing against either of them. They're both great athletes.
Absolutely.
Just saying what we personally think would be better for the team.
Right. But they both, defensively, Sonora played great again. Like you guys said, Javen Gaines I actually ran into him to the gas station Saturday, and he was talking to me, and I asked him about the little dance he did. He's like, I told Coach I was going to do that, so I did it. And I was like, I would love it. Back out there enjoying yourself. Yeah. And he said he felt great. No issues whatsoever. So he said he's ready to go.
Good deal. Just like trying to just cap it off a little bit, but that's just one more piece of the puzzle you throw in there, and you really have nobody to double team. I mean, I guess you double team Javen now, but that leads everybody else up to open up front there. So
exactly,
like Graham and all the others. So
talking about that little dance he did after making plays, those are the kinds of things I like to see in football teams in high school. Have fun with it. This is high school football. It's not the most serious thing you're going to have in your life. It's a good time to go out there, enjoy what you're doing, and live it up, live in the moment, because you've only got 4 years of it. Some people are lucky like Logan here and get a couple extra years, but for the most of us, enjoy your time playing football because you're going to miss it.
Yep.
I totally agree with you, AJ. One thing I'd like to see more too is kids get in the end zone and celebrate with your teammates. Like my coach Allen at Finley said, scoring touchdowns never gets boring. And I mean, there's a truth to that. Right. I mean, you bust your butts in those games to put the ball in the end zone. Go down there, celebrate with your teammates. Obviously, nothing excessive. Right. You can go on down there, pat them on the butt, give them a high five. Get them hyped up. I mean, you guys just scored a touchdown. I'd like to see a lot of teams do that more too. So. All right, let's go ahead. Let's move on to the next game. Van Wert at Ottawa Glandorf, and this one was kind of surprising at halftime. This game was 10-10, but Van Wert ended up winning 31-16. So I was pretty shocked about this. I mean, we kind of seen Ottawa Glandorf struggle a little bit this season, but you guys have thoughts on this game?
The only thing I thought was when we saw that score, I thought, what? I mean, Van Wert just scored 70 points, and now they're tied with OG, who's really been struggling this year, and they're tied 10-10. It's kind of like, what happened? Only thing I can think maybe is that Van Wert kind of glanced past.
Yeah, it's kind of what I was
OG
thinking.
and kind of like, hey, we got halftime. Like, we got to wake up here.
Right.
I look at Ottawa Glandorf and I just can't fathom what kind of feel I'm getting from them. Week 1 they play at home against a very good Eastwood team. They lose 0-17, which is not terrible. They play at Wapakoneta week 2 and only lose that game by 7 points. And we know how good Wapakoneta is. I mean, they beat Van Wert.
Absolutely.
So that's another game. But then you go ahead a few weeks later, You look at them playing Lima Bath, and Lima Bath has 0 wins, I believe, one.
No, maybe.
I don't.
No, OG has one. Yes.
Yeah. Lima Bath has 0 wins, and they only win that game 14-0. So it's like they're just kind of all over the place.
Right.
I feel like if they could get on a constant rhythm, they'd put up a battle. But I don't know. Week after week, it's like you don't know what you're going to get out of them. They got a game with Defiance coming up. I'd like to see that matchup. I mean, I think if Ottawa Glandorf wins a couple games, and I think that would be a pretty good game. But you guys have any other comments on this game?
When I guess after all the results came in and you saw the final score, but you saw the halftime score in comparison to this one, it was kind of like the Ayersville and Hicksville score we saw. It was 8-0 at half. Like Coach Fairchild said, you kind of almost wonder if you go through the motions and everything. You see a team on paper, here's their record, and there's this. You show up, you go through the motions, and before you know it, at halftime, you're heading into the locker room. It's 10-10, and you're getting screamed at by your coaches. And on the other side, like if you're Ayersville playing Hicksville, Coach Mickey probably just unleashed on those kids for a couple seconds to, kind of get your head in the game. Hey, it's a 4-quarter game here. Let's go.
Right. Well, somebody here mentioned earlier, there's a reason we play these games.
Yep.
You can't overlook anybody because you can always lose a game that you shouldn't lose.
We could probably go through the last 2 or 3 weeks and just pick out on paper 2 or 3 that, hey, these
absolutely.
Just you look at the halftime score or the final score, and they're kind of some head scratchers and a little bit of shocking. Like, hey, was your head in the game the first half, or
and sometimes coming from the coaching side, sometimes you just get out there and you go, and they schemed you really well, and they found something with you that I can kind of pick at this, and they they just kind of pick at you until you get in halftime, and then you start talking to your guys and like, hey, what happened? And all right, we'll take care of that, and then then they kind of take care of business after that. But
give OG credit. I mean, they played. One of the better teams in the area, toe-to-toe for pretty much, one half for sure.
Yeah, so definitely. And I mean, and you look at that, and Van Wert's been number 1 all year, or pretty much all year, I believe. Yeah. So that impressed me out of Ottawa Glandorf. I mean, that showed me. I mean, like I said, they've just been all over, ups and downs, and maybe they can figure things out that they'll get on the win column. Let's go ahead. Let's look at a couple more games here real quick. Bluffton was at Crestview, and Bluffton ended up coming away with that with a 17-14 win. Again, Crestview's another team. They started off 3-0 in the season. Pretty good start. They had a win against Wayne Trace. Parkway and Hicksville kind of down this year, but again, after that, they dropped 3 more games, so they're down to a 3-3 record. So what were you guys' thoughts on this game here between Bluffton and Crestview?
Yeah, for me, Logan, it's like mentally, I'm still picturing, I guess, the Crestview, the team that was 3-0, and we're like the 11th in the state.
Right. Yeah,
I believe in the initial poll, and then ever since then, they're just kind of taking several steps backwards. So whether it be injury or just opponent, it's as an outsider looking in, you're kind of wondering, what's going on at Crestview.
Yeah, going into the picks for the end of the night here, it makes my pick for that game, Leipzig versus Bluffton, makes it kind of difficult. I tossed it around for a little while, and we'll get to that. But Bluffton they've had some good wins here, and especially with Crestview not doing as well as what we kind of saw at the beginning of the year. It's interesting.
I mean, just looking at Crestview's schedule, like you said, they were 3-0, and then just they faced Allen East, they lost. They faced Elphus Jefferson and lost. They faced Bluffton and lost. They got Columbus Grove this week, and then Leipzig to finish out the season. And Spencerville and Ada, and they're away also 3. They play Columbus Grove at home, and then 3 straight away games. Boy, I don't know. They need to find it. Because I got a little bit of a tough road to hoe here.
And yes, our sign did just fall down. So the show still goes on, but we'll fix it at next break. So not that big of a deal. We're just trying to get fancy with it today and try to cover up all these cords here. So we're trying to elevate it a little bit. So I just wonder what was going on there.
See Logan's sexy legs.
Yeah, I got pants on today. I still got my work clothes on. So. But nope, the show goes on. So let's go ahead. Let's move on to the next game. Let's talk about a couple more. 8-man. Wow, big win for Holgate. They ended up giving the Fort Wayne Crusaders their first loss of the year, and the Crusaders have been blowing out everyone this year. And Holgate, they strapped up those helmets and they were ready to play because they came away with a 30-25 win. And quarterback Xavier McCord from Holgate had one heck of a performance. And those kids played hard, and they came away with a victory. So thoughts on this big win for Holgate, guys?
Yeah, they said their first half was just amazing as far as stats from what I saw. It was very impressive, especially rebound on somebody rebound to win on the second time around. So, yeah, very impressive win by Holgate.
Tony or AJ?
Yeah, I saw the score, and I was kind of surprised. I know Holgate's been playing well, but I figured Fort Wayne would take care of business, and Holgate played well, like you said. Xavier McCord put up some good stats and took care of business with those guys. It's pretty awesome.
It's a 94-yard touchdown drive to win the game.
Wow,
with a minute 27 left. So,
and you know what that sets up for this week? Well, we'll get to it eventually. But the big old Holgate and Stryker matchup, two local Northern football teams. So I believe they're both 4-1 too. Yeah. So
wish that was a Saturday night game.
Oh, I know that'd be awesome. I mean, that's a pretty big game. So. Sure. Definitely one of the better ones in the area coming up. Let's hit on a couple more games here. Montpelier was at St. Joseph Central Catholic. And Montpelier and Coach Andy Robinson were able to come away with their second win of the season. So congratulations to them. And they won 43-23. So again, Montpelier proved to be enough to win the game, and good to see another local team and a new head coach this year get another win on the chart. I mean, that's huge for the program, especially when you're trying to establish something and get it going. And Coach Robinson continues to put in the effort and get his kids to play for him. So, guys, thoughts on this game?
I just looked at Montpelier's schedule. You know, they played Antwerp, Edgerton, Evergreen at the beginning of the season. Antwerp, Evergreen, Edgerton. 3 losses, bang, bang, bang. Had only scored 7 points, and then they played this Tuscawaras or whatever that is, and threw out 40 points. Then come right back to play Eden, only threw up 7, and then they come back this week and throw up 43 points. So something there is not, you're throwing up 40 points or you're throwing up 7 or 0. Something's going on defensively there or offensively, however you want to say it, that something that didn't work against everybody else that worked against those teams, and you go from that drastic of a difference each week.
AJ, you got any comments?
No, I honestly don't know much about this game, but Montpelier coming out with another win is always awesome. I always look forward to seeing how some of the teams at the bottom of the list continue to get their wins and slowly starting to build that program up a little bit. So.
All right. Well, that concludes our game recaps from last week. Let's go ahead and take a break to hear from our sponsors, and I'll fix our sign too next time you guys watch. So we're going to take a break. 3Chord is a family-owned and operated business who offers the highest quality embroidery, screen printing, sign, and promotional items to customers in Northwest Ohio at competitive prices. Locations in Archbold, Napoleon, and Bowling Green. Check them out at 3chord.com. That's THREECORD.com. For any of your auto body or collision needs, be sure to check out Bat & Stevens Body Shop, voted the #1 body shop in Northwest Ohio by Crescent News readers. Give them a call today at 419-497-3111 to schedule your free estimate. Check out Tenora Rams Live. Live events broadcast on YouTube and post-game results, articles, schedules, and more can all be found on tenorarams.com. Feel free to look up their Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram pages as well. Jimenez Basketball Academy strives to create an atmosphere to cultivate basketball fundamentals in Northwest Ohio youth athletes, offering one-on-one sessions, group sessions, speed and agility training, and much more. Located in Pettisville, Ohio, call Coach Jesse today at 419-551-8105. We're back on the NWO Sports Podcast. Logan Bailey here with Keith Brown, Tony, and AJ Fairchild. So we're moving on to Player of the Week from Week 6. And again, another week of multiple good performances. Couple really tight games last week, but a lot of kids stepped up, and a lot of kids ended up making this finalist list for Player of the Week from NWO Sports. So let's go ahead, and I'll rattle off some names and positions and what schools are from, and we'll discuss where we're kind of leaning, and we'll go from there. So let's get it started. Ayersville running back Owen Berner had 17 carries, 192 rushing yards, 11.3 yards a carry, and 2 rushing touchdowns. Ayersville wide receiver Abe Delano, 3 receptions, 163 receiving yards. I thought this was crazy. 54.3 yards a catch is what he's averaging, and 2 receiving touchdowns. So you're pretty much driving half the field with 1 catch. So that was a pretty crazy stat. Striker running back Levi Barnum. Barnum and the boys, according to Keith. So over at Striker, 14 carries, 216 rushing yards, 3 rushing TDs. Striker quarterback Jacob Caldwell, he was 21 of 24, 88% completion percentage, 196 passing yards, 2 passing TDs, and 1 rushing TD. Wauseon quarterback Trey Parsons had a nice game, 15 of 21, 71% completion percentage, 150 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown, and he had 4 total touchdowns for the game. Antwerp quarterback Carson Ultimus was 14 of 18 for the game, 308 passing yards, 4 passing TDs. Edgerton quarterback Corey Everett was 9 of 10, 90%, 131 passing yards, 2 passing TDs, 9 carries for 92 rushing yards. He had 2 rushing touchdowns and totaled 4 TDs for the game. Bryan running back Sam Harold, what a game from him. 35 carries, 263 rushing yards, and he was averaging 7.5 yards a carry with 3 rushing touchdowns. And I thought that was crazy, too, to have that many carries and still average 7.5 yards a carry. That's very impressive. Bryan quarterback Jace Kepler was 9 of 11, 82% completion percentage. He had 80 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown, 19 carries, 111 rushing yards, 2 rushing TDs, and 3 total touchdowns for the game. And I tell you what, those Bryan boys can run the ball. So Holgate quarterback Xavier McCord was 16 of 19, 84% completion percentage, 259 passing yards. He had 3 passing touchdowns. He had an interception thrown, but he also had an interception on the defensive side of things. Archbold running back Carson Dominic, he returned again to the finalist list here. 17 carries, 127 rushing yards, and 5 rushing touchdowns, which is pretty impressive. I mean, thinking like rushing touchdown-wise, the only other person I know that had that many was probably KP DeLarber from Sonora last year that had had that many in a game. I think KP might have had 6 in that game, or maybe 5. But, again, to have 5 rushing touchdowns in one game, what a performance from him. Patrick Henry quarterback Nash Meyer was 27 of 42, 64% completion percentage, 397 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing TD, and he had 5 total touchdowns for the game. Patrick Henry wide receiver Landon Johnson, 13 receptions, 171 receiving yards, and 1 receiving touchdown. And again, they made one heck of a comeback towards Bryan, but just couldn't get it done. But again, 2 great performances by the Patrick Henry kids. And last but not least, Napoleon running back Andrew Williams. He was a former player of the week for us. He had 20 carries, 196 rushing yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns against Maumee last Friday. Well, guys, that is our list of finalists I had from the stats I was able to find. And who wants to start with some guys that were kind of topping your list?
Well, for me, I look at the Napoleon running back Andrew Williams threw out another big game after that 350-yard game he had against Northview.
Yeah, record-setting performance.
Yeah, and you were saying 5 rushing touchdowns. I believe he had 4 in that game. Yeah, I remember right. So, that's pretty impressive. But I do like Sam Harold, 263 yards. It's in a big game against a conference rival, Patrick Henry. That's pretty awesome.
Definitely.
I like seeing some of these names that keep popping back up over and over again. Levi Barnum, it seems like we talk about him every single week. Carson Ultimus is always up there with 308 passing yards. That's a lot. I know. Who did they end up playing this past week here?
Antwerp played Fairview.
Oh, yep. Fairview. Okay. So I they didn't have a super tough opponent, but still putting up 308 yards. It's still pretty impressive, especially having 14 of 18. So his completion percentage was pretty up there. Looking at a lot of these quarterbacks in the area here over the last week, their completion percentages were pretty damn high. Corey Everett with 90%. Jason Kepler with Bryan, he was 82%. Xavier McCord, 84%. So some of these guys are way up there in the completion percentage, and that's what matters to me more so than the passing yards, because a lot of these passing yards come from post-catch yards.
True. Right.
So to me, the more important stat for a quarterback is your completion percentage, seeing that you're throwing for 21 for 24 like Jacob Caldwell at striker. Those are pretty impressive stats to me.
For me, highlight a couple. We're talking about Delano earlier. He had a 76 and a 74-yard. Those are both touchdown receptions. So that's a majority of his yards right there was just on the 2 catches, but very important and very just kind of a lights out performance there on 3 catches for 163 yards. And we'll get to see him this week on Friday night at Sonora. So looking forward to seeing him. You guys touched on Sam Harold. Boy, that's playing against a quality defense like Patrick Henry. Shout out to Holgate's Xavier McCord. I mean, you had to go, I believe, 94 yards to take the lead in that game late. So, I mean, if anybody that's been on the football field and you got to go basically that whole length of the football field, and you're just thinking, my gosh, are we going to get down there? But to lead Holgate all the way down there, that's extremely impressive. So, and again, seems like every week Nash Meyer's on this list. Again, just comes to work, brings the lunch pail, and takes care of business. So.
And looking at some of the guys that were really top of my list, Keith hit a couple of them. Holgate quarterback Xavier McCord to lead a game-winning drive. Like you said, 94 yards.
That's a long ways.
Like Keith said, if you've been on a football field, if you're not on, that is one of the hardest things to drive 90-plus yards for a touchdown, especially when the game's on the line. Yep. So, I mean, he was one that really stuck out to me. Again, AJ kind of pointed out some of the completion percentages of these quarterbacks, and he was 84%, threw in about almost he's 259 passing yards and 3 passing touchdowns, and he had an interception on defense, so pretty efficient from him. Again, Nash Meyer, another excellent performance. He really made a comeback. And I really like the Bryan boys, Jace Kepler and Sam Harold. I mean, they really kind of turned things around. You know, Bryan took a couple of losses here, and they kind of bounced back against a good Patrick Henry team. So those two also stood out to me. And we talked again. We kind of narrowed it down between about 4 or 5 or so. We had some discussion, but at the end of the day, when you can beat a really good conference opponent, and I mean, honestly, I don't know if they would have been favored if you had a spread on this game. I don't know if they would have been favored.
Probably not.
But we ended up deciding the Northwest Ohio Sports Player of the Week is going to go to Bryan running back Sam Harold with 35 carries, 263 rushing yards, 7.5 yards a carry, and he had 3 rushing touchdowns. And to hold on and do that against Patrick Henry. Very good performance from Sam Harold, and as well as from Jace Kepler too. I mean, those two really led the way for that Bryan offense, and they ended up getting the win. So again, congratulations to Sam Harold from running back from Bryan, and the Player of the Week will receive a plaque sponsored by Bat Stevens Body Shop at the end of the season. So again, for all these kids that made the finalist list and that did not, keep up the good work and try to continue to make this list at the end of each week. So we enjoy watching your performances and seeing you guys represent the Northwest Ohio area. Let's go ahead. Let's move on to the power rankings for Week 7. And again, I'll go ahead and run through our power rankings here. These were released yesterday, so they were out on social media on NWO Sports for Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. So go ahead and check that out, but we're going to go ahead and I'll reveal groups of these teams and we'll discuss on how we think they are fairly or not fairly ranked. So it's a chance for these guys to roast me on my power rankings that takes in a lot of factors. So let's go ahead. Let's look at number 27, Hicksville, number 26, Hilltop, number 25, Fairview, number 24, Swanton, number 23, Montpelier, number 22, Paulding, number 21, Evergreen. Thoughts on this group here, guys?
The only one that's not at the bottom yet is OG, but after kind of putting up a little fight against Van Wert, maybe you've got them where they need to be. So that bottom group is kind of anybody's game there.
Yeah, I think they're accurately ranked. But like I said last week, when kind of went a little more in depth on these bottom 5, as we'll call it, but like Hicksville, I mean, even though they're ranked 27th. Go ask Coach Mickey what he thinks of the Hicksville Aces at the end of the first half last week.
Yeah, no kidding.
Coach Lucas Smith obviously had the boys ready to go, and not to elaborate on like a previous conversation from last week, but if you're these kids from Hicksville and Hilltop and these kids that continue to go out and practice and play every single day, that first half, Hicksville over at Ayersville, I mean, that right there is 8-0 at halftime. So
yeah, I mean, I think you think one of these days, I think even looking at Hicksville at number 27, they still have a chance. They have a couple winnable games that are coming up, and you think possibly. I mean, you look in the GMC, you have Hicksville and Fairview, two teams without a loss, and they got to play each other at one point. So I think that will be a good matchup, and we'll see who ends up winning that later down the line.
Yep.
Let's go ahead. Let's move on to the next group here. Looking at number 20, North Central, number 19, Wayne Trace, number 18, Ottawa Glandorf, number 17, Crestview, number 16, Eden. Thoughts on this group here?
For me, North Central, they're playing great, and being at 20, I really think those guys probably, in my opinion, should be ranked a little higher. They've been playing great, taking care of business. 4-2.
I think the thing with North Central that I find difficult is the strength of schedule. I know they're 4-2, but some of the teams they have, I can't remember. Woodmore is one of the first teams. Yeah. They haven't had a win for a while. But, I mean, you look at, too, the performances, though. I mean, they are playing some of these weaker, per se, teams, but they're blowing them out of the water. Yep. And their running backs, her running very well, too. So, Keith and AJ, you guys got any thoughts?
I was just kind of looking at the same thing here with North Central and with Wayne Trace being at 19. It's kind of like I almost think North Central should kind of leapfrog Wayne Trace a little bit now. With Wayne Trace having only 2 wins, it's hard to say which way it should go.
I think, too, you look at Wayne Trace, we got a chance to see them play. I don't know if that record necessarily accurately represents them because, I mean, you look at Wayne Trace, they tried going for 2 and winning against Edgerton, and they came up just short, and they only lost to Tenora. They lost to Tenora by, 6 points?
Yep.
So,
7.
I mean,
13-6.
Yeah. So, that's I just feel like Wayne Trace is kind of similar to Ottawa Glandorf in the fact that they're very inconsistent, and they just can't get over the hump for a win.
Yeah, I think you're right, Logan. I think they're those teams, like you see late in the season on your schedule, you really don't want to play them, I guess.
Right,
because they are very competitive, and they can play you for 4 quarters. So
I just Logan, I'm going to pick on you a minute.
All right.
I'm going to pick on you. You said I could roast you, so I'm going to roast you a little bit.
You roast me away. I am ready.
I'm going to go back to the North Central thing. So I just look at I was curious after you mentioned that. I was curious. So, North Central, you talk about the strength of schedule. And I look at, and you've got Edgerton ranked 12. And I go back and look at their schedule. They played Eden. Okay.
Yeah.
They got Hilltop, Montpelier, Wayne Trace, and Paulding was 4 teams that 4 of their wins. And they did take care of it pretty handily, other than Wayne Trace was 21-20, but and then they lost to Ayersville. But the strength of schedule with Edgerton there is not not too big, not too great.
Yeah,
so
I say that's a fair point. Yeah,
just throwing that out there.
No, I agree.
North Central guys, come on, get on my back.
And again, we talked. It's awesome to see North Central start a program and having some success. And again, I mean, they've been traveling all over the state to start. And I guess last week it was at a neutral site. I believe they played their opponent at Wapakoneta, so they didn't have to travel all the way down to Dayton per se. But still, from North Central to Wapakoneta, that's still a pretty hefty drive there. So
we drove there twice for playoffs.
Yeah,
that's enough.
Right.
Yeah, North Central's north of where we're at here in Defiance, so that's even longer drive.
But no, I think that's I just hope North Central continues, and again, we talked about them being in the playoffs, possibly making playoffs. That would be like super awesome. So.
Yeah, would be.
I think Crestview and Eden are another 2 teams kind of looking at that group that are, again, iffy. I mean, they're both 3-3, and Eden's coming off a tough loss to Fort Loramie, and Crestview's coming off 3 consecutive wins. So it's like, where do you put them at? I mean, they're kind of – I know Eden's young, but Crestview's kind of all over now. I mean, like you said, Keith, earlier, Crestview's ranked to number 11 in the state at one point?
One time they were ranked 11th.
Yeah, so it's like you're curious to see how Crestview plays against some of these better opponents in the NWC conference. So
just looking at that Region 26 of Division 7, they're with Ayersville, Antwerp. Ayersville's 3rd, Antwerp's 4th. Then we go down a little bit farther there. North Central actually is 10th. Eden is 13th. Crestview is 14th. If the playoffs were to start Saturday, that's where those schools are at.
I'm trying to figure out.
Edgerton's in there. They're 7th. So, like, all the teams we're going to be talking about are talking about is kind of in this Region 26, Division 7.
And that's kind of crazy, too, that Ayersville's just ahead of Antwerp. I mean, because Ayersville has 1 loss and Antwerp has no losses. Must be some of those schools that Ayersville beat. I believe Bluffton would probably get them quite a few points, and even Edgerton too. So those probably rack up a lot of points for the Pilots. Let's look at the next group. Coming in at number 15 is Napoleon, 14 Leipzig, number 13 Wauseon, number 12 Edgerton, number 11 Tenora. So thoughts on this group here?
I don't really have anything. I think you got that one nailed.
Yeah, just kind of talking about Leipzig, with them putting up over 400 points a game on average. To see them with a 3-3 record sitting at 14 is kind of like, man, what is going on there? But it's football. Things happen, so it's kind of sad to see them sitting at 14 because I was expecting some really big things from them this year.
Yeah, and I think too, I mean, they have a really good quarterback and running back at Leipzig, and it wouldn't shock me if they get back to that 450 plot, around there, 400 yards of offensive game. I mean, that's pretty impressive stat. But again, I think too, we're still trying to figure out Wauseon. I feel like they're a team that they have the talent and they've made some changes and they seem to be doing better. But again, I feel like they're kind of one that I'm still wondering about. And Napoleon too. I mean, Napoleon's got a couple good athletes and they finally got their second win of the season. But again, the NLL is tough, and they're another one that I could potentially see maybe dropping in the future, but it's hard to say. So
yeah, Tenora's kind of like Wauseon. Kind of got the meat of their schedule coming up. We got Ayersville this week, then we got Edgerton coming up in a couple weeks. So Rams ranked 11th. Could see them tumble a little bit here in the upcoming weeks.
All right, let's look at the top 10 here. So cracking down at number 10 was Patrick Henry, number 9 Brian, number 8 Delta, number 7 Defiance, number 6 Ayersville. So thought on this group in the top 10.
What a leap for Brian.
That's Brian, big jump.
From 17 to 9 this week. So
that's a big win.
It was.
It's a huge win for Brian. That's, congratulations to them pulling out that win. We've talked about them being kind of a laying in the weeds a little bit, and there it is. It happened. So
I see you put Ayersville ahead of Delta, though, even though they.
I know. I did. I knew that was coming at some point, but it's like, at what point do you jump another team? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think, even, I don't know, with the Brian and Delta and PH, all NWL teams, and I don't know, those guys could go anywhere right there.
Yeah. And I think, too, someone that has really been impressing me and slowly climbing up, and I had some people message me that, because preseason-wise, I don't remember what I had Defiance at. I'll have to look here real quick, but Defiance is down to number 7 this week. So, I mean, we've been praising Defiance a lot, and they've been doing a nice job. But, at the beginning of the year, we were still kind of unsure because Defiance had a rough year last year, and I believe where did I have? Defiance was 19 coming in at the preseason ranking. So, but if you look at them, they were 3-7 last year. Yeah. So,
I think Defiance is playing great, and they deserve to move up. A big jump from 11 to 7 to crack. I think if they keep winning, they're definitely. I think they'll end the season in the top 5, in my opinion. I think you can see them easily move ahead of Columbus Grove.
And one of the notes I had actually, this is Defiance's first 3-game winning streak since 2013.
Wow!
So.
That's pretty good for if you're a Bulldog fan.
It's almost a decade, so that's pretty impressive.
That's good to hear. Let's go ahead. Let's reveal the top 5 here. So coming in at number 5 is Columbus Grove, number 4 Antwerp, number 3 Archbold, number 2 Liberty Center, and number 1 Van Wert. So I know this has stayed the same week to week. So what are your guys' thoughts on the top 5?
My opinion, number 1's got to change. Liberty Center's got to be number 1. Van Wert's had a couple games here that, in my opinion, minus the 70-point win, I think Liberty Center has been just pounding people left and right, and they're undefeated. I think Liberty Center deserves that number 1 spot.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that one. I've been big with Liberty Center since we saw them play Tenora, how they've been consistently whooping on people, even other teams that are in the top here. Archbold's right there at 3, and they put it to Archbold quite a bit there for being such a big rival game that week. So I would love to see them sitting at number 1 right now, with Van Wert, especially with Van Wert having some closer calls lately.
I think one thing too, I mean, you guys make very valid points, is to Van Wert's played a lot of tough teams, but Liberty Center has too. So, I mean...
Actually, go ahead, Logan.
No, you go ahead, Keith.
Yeah, it was... I was looking back at their schedule. kind of want to go back and watch the game film versus Napoleon and how Coach Sweary and the Wildcats put up 21 points.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a 35-21 win by Liberty Center, but they pretty much blanked everybody else. Wasion scored 6. Yeah. But shout out to Nora. Shout out Seago. Shout out Archibald, which is probably the most impressive win, really, I'm guessing, on here.
Yeah.
Shout out Swanton. Then you got Brian coming up this week, so.
This one will be an interesting one for Liberty Center with Brian on that. I mean, Brian coming off a big win and see if they bring any momentum.
And I think, too, like you guys said, if Liberty Center comes out and they blow out Bryan, which we know Bryan's got some talent, they're not a bad team. I mean, then you can compare because Bryan played Van Wert, too. So there's a game you can kind of compare. And, I mean, obviously, I wouldn't say it's necessarily comparing apples to apples per se. I mean, maybe apples to oranges or apples to bananas, but you get somewhat of a comparison there. So I think that will be a good measuring stick for the power rankings. All right. Well, that concludes our power rankings for this week. Let's go ahead. We'll take a break to hear from our sponsors, and we'll be right back. Fairchild Family Chiropractic aims to help families to get better together in the least invasive way possible. Dr. Fairchild focuses on the neck using the Blair technique and Palmer package, adjusting to correct spinal misalignments. Located in Defiance, Ohio, call Dr. Fairchild today at 419-576-5070 to schedule an appointment. Northwest Ohio Basketball hosts premier basketball tournaments for boys in grades 3 to 8 in the area. Upcoming tournaments are right around the corner. Give them a call today at 419-283-5296 or check out their website at nwoball.com. Crystal Vasquez of Amerimaid Realty is a top real estate agent in Northwest Ohio. Crystal's compassion and enthusiasm allow her to find that special property or house just for you. Located in Bryan, Ohio, give her a call today at 419-799-1243. It is that time of the podcast, and it's the hot takes. So, boy, do we have a couple good ones. And thanks to our good friend Michael Hearn, and he sent in a hot take. And that hot take, starting off, was Keith Brown would win a 100-meter dash of the 4 of you raced. Hashtag hot take.
Oh, my word. Yeah, it would be well, as these gentlemen just saw between segments here, I had to get up and stretch because I had a cramp forming in my leg. So, 100-meter dash, that's a length of a football field.
A long way.
I believe it's 110 yards.
Yeah, it's
maybe
man.
He might win the race to who's going to puke first running that. That would be
yeah, 10 years ago it probably could, but now, man.
You know, we would have to make
like
that
a race to the 50, stop, then go the next 60 yards.
Take a hydration break.
I think that'd be one of those you would want to make sure you're videotaped because I'm pretty sure somebody's going to eat it about halfway down. The legs are going to give out and face plant.
I feel like that's something we would have to do for like a charity event. Right. We could raise some major money for that and see how that goes. But yeah, I don't know. That'd be interesting. So
somebody wants to donate some money to the NWO Sports Podcast. Maybe we'll get it together. We'll go out there. We'll videotape it. And then,
we'll do it at halftime of the final game.
There you go.
Oh man,
we do it. Yeah, we do it at halftime of the final tomorrow game.
You know what we should do? I'm gonna make a poll about this. So I'll go ahead and release this podcast, and I'll make a poll, and we'll see who people vote out of the 4 of us who would win in a 100-meter dash. So I think that'd be great. We can talk about that next week. So.
Keith will be training.
No training. I don't have time for training.
Oh man, that'd be fun.
Eat, sleep, and work. That's about it.
That's a good one.
He'll be running at work. He'll be doing sprints at work.
Keith will be on the hamster wheel.
Yes.
That's a good one, Michael.
That's
so
awesome.
Thanks again. We like having some fun.
Yeah,
so
Michael does a fantastic job down there.
He does. Yep. And be sure to go ahead.
No,
I was gonna give him a shout out. Yep. So go ahead, Keith.
No, yeah, he does. As you guys could probably hear during our commercial breaks, you're like, that name sounds familiar, or that voice sounds familiar. Occasionally, we'll team up during the baseball season and do a game or two together, but Michael does a great job down there. His podcast, try and listen to that every chance I get.
Around the Hearn,
correct. Yep. Does a fantastic job down there. So thank you, Michael.
Yep. Another, like we talked about too, there's so many great outlets here in Northwest Ohio, and he's another one that continues to showcase these athletes and keep everyone involved in Northwest Ohio sports.
It's more of a subject later on. It's not a hot take subject, but it'd be great to get Garrett from the Bull and some of these other ones around. You don't really hear too much around because I guess Garrett's hard region, but Michael, you don't really hear, like, people that don't know of him in our area. To get him in, talk to him a little bit, and get his thoughts, and Garrett from the Bull and stuff like that, and just like sit down and kind of like we do here, just add a couple more people to it, and just hey, that'd be a great time. Kind of the end of the season. Hey, just come in and start talking.
Right,
It'd be awesome.
Really cool.
I think Keith needs to call somebody out. It'd be the NWO Sports versus Around the Hearn.
Awesome.
But no, that would be a cool idea. Yeah. And I mean, nothing better than a bunch of guys sitting around a table.
We'd never get out of here.
What time is it? 8:50.
Have to take the clock off the wall.
So nothing better than a bunch of guys sitting around on a weekday talking some high school football.
Yeah.
All right, that was a great hot take. Yep. Let's move on to some other ones, a little more serious. Yep. So no more about Keith winning some 100-meter dashes. So, which that's debatable. So
very.
Let's go ahead. Let's move to the next one. Brez Zipfel is a top 5 quarterback. And for those of you who don't know, Brez Zipfel is a quarterback from Defiance High School, and he is a sophomore. And I kind of looked at this, and you know what? We've talked about Defiance, and Brez is just one of those kids that continues to go out. And we kind of talk, I would say, a little bit more, I don't know, flashy per se with his stats and that are eye-popping than like a Zane Zider. But, I mean, Keith, you mentioned earlier he goes out there and the last couple times, pair of touchdowns and close to 200 passing yards too. Yep. So, I mean, you look at top 5 quarterback in Northwest Ohio, as far as teams we cover, I mean, I don't know, whatever you want to say the cutoff line is for Northwest Ohio. Yeah. I mean, we don't really consider like the inner city Toledo schools and stuff like that. Just kind of, essentially it's like a 30-mile radius from Defiance, Ohio is what we cover because that's where we're based out of. And I kind of looked at some quarterbacks and, you know, I was looking at like a Nash Meyer from Patrick Henry. He's been amazing this year. Carson Altimus. I mean, I think those two are definitely in the top 5. Number 1, I think, in my opinion, quarterback in Northwest Ohio is Aiden Pratt. So he's in there. That's 3. And then you kind of look, I mean, we were talking, I mean, Corey Everett is in there, but Corey Everett is more like dual threat. Yeah. Like I mean, he is a quarterback, but I'm talking more pocket passer, can throw the ball, sling it a little bit. I mean, I think Brez probably breaks it in there at 4 or 5. I mean, honestly, as a sophomore, and look at how the big things Defiance is doing this year. And I mean, he's been a big component of it. So what are you guys thinking on this?
I just think for him being in, you know, question whether he's top 5, you know, somewhere around 4 or 5 as a sophomore, that's awesome. That only means good things for him and the future of Defiance football. You know, when he gets another year under his belt, even 2 years under his belt, what is he going to be like as a, you know, late in the season junior or even all of his senior year? What is he going to be like then? Because, you know, maybe we'll be talking about him number 1, number 2 quarterback at that point.
That's an excellent point, AJ.
Yeah. I personally, there's one guy that you kind of left out of there. I think Trey Parsons from Wauseon, since they made the switch, he's kind of stepped up a little bit. And, you know, he's another name I think could come in there. He just doesn't, I don't think, has the stats that everybody else has because he didn't play much the first few games. So until they made that switch, but yeah, I mean, I think Brez could be. He's in the running. I mean, I think he's definitely in the running. He's definitely a top 10.
Yeah, for sure, top 10.
You know, top 10.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think, too, another guy that I kind of left or didn't mention is Kyler Sapp from Eden, too. Oh, yeah. He's another guy. I mean, if you're a quarterback in Bob Owen's offense, you're going to thrive. And he knows how to coach his quarterbacks up. But, yeah, I mean, I like your point. I mean, he's definitely top 10. And, like going back to what AJ said, as a sophomore, though, I mean, really, for him to be thrown into this conversation, wow. I mean, what a job. So
I guess, like, if you're looking at it as, like, a Coach Fairchild point of view, if I'm Coach Cooper, I'm like, if I got Craig Nichols and Brogan Castillo back there, do I really want my quarterback in the top 5? You know what I mean? It's like, boy, I just want to hand off and go through the hole and pitch it outside and maybe throw it 15, 16 times a game because I got these 2 horses behind me. So
and we talked too a little bit off here about some of the youth Defiance has. Brogan Castillo, I think he's a junior, not 100%, but I know he's not a senior. Craig Nichols is unfortunately a senior, and he's doing big things. But you look, and I believe I was talking at work today that Defiance's offensive line, I believe 4 out of 5 of them are coming back at least next year. So I mean,
that's huge.
You get a year of experience under all their belt, and I mean, they're already doing well this year. I mean, it makes you think. You get all these athletes come back, and you throw in Anthony Wilder. He's put out at wide receiver for Defiance. He was their leading rusher, I believe, the year before. So, I mean, he's another weapon that they have, and I think they've got some good talent there. And I mean, you throw in some good coaching by Coach Cooper. Man, I'm excited for Defiance Bulldog. Yes. I mean, if you're a Defiance Bulldog fan, I mean, you better get excited for these next couple of years.
Yep.
It's almost like you wish they were playing home this week just to see the crowd that would come out to support the Bulldogs. So
that's what I've said before too. I mean, the more you win, I mean that's contagious. Yep. I mean, you start winning week after week after week, your crowd starts growing.
Yep. It's just a buzz in the community.
Yes, I was just
like we were talking last couple of weeks actually. Like your aunt that doesn't go to football games ever, but she starts hearing everybody talk about Bulldog football. She's like, "Hey, can I come Friday?"
Yeah.
And before you know it, you got grandma and aunt and all these people tag along with you to Friday night football. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's good to see. So, I mean, I think definitely, like you guys said, top 10 for sure, borderline top 5. But again, I mean, there's a lot of good quarterbacks we've seen in the area. So, pretty good hot take. And again, Brez, keep up the good work. I mean, Defiance is doing some big things. Let's look at the next one. North Central will win 6 games and make the playoffs in the first varsity season. Very impressed by the Eagles. And we've kind of hit on this time and time again. And again, all these hot takes are anonymous, and we appreciate you guys sending them in. But again, I'm still thinking. I think at this point in the season, I think it's a no doubter that North Central will make the playoffs. I mean, they have enough computer points, I think, at this point, and I think that it's almost clinched at this point. So
yeah, I mean, they're gonna win at least one more. I would believe they played Hilltop,
so
playing at home against Hilltop, and I don't know anything about Summerfield and Whiteford. The last 2 games, Erie Mason, they played this week, and I just I mean, they're definitely going to be a 5-win team, and like you said, Logan, I think with the computer points they're getting, I think they will be the playoffs.
And especially with the playoffs expanding to 16 teams, that's so many teams. And we've seen teams in the past, even if you have a losing record, you can still make the playoffs. And at this point, as many wins as they have, which is
they're 4-2,
4 wins.
Like I said, they're going to be 5-2. They'll be there's no doubt in my mind they'll beat Hilltop, so they're going to be 5. There's 5 wins, and they've just got to win one more to win 6. I think that one's a good hot take.
Yeah. I mean, AJ, you got any comments? Or Keith?
No, like you said, I don't know a whole lot about the last 2 teams they play there, Summerfield and Whiteford. Don't really know what they're like. So if if North Central can pull out the win this week, then that pretty much secures that 6. Because like you said, I think they'll beat Hilltop. So then whoever wins those last 2 doesn't really matter. They'll definitely make the playoffs there. So.
And I'm looking too, and I think this week will be kind of a determining factor. And it's always hard because some of these schools, I understand North Central just started up, but they don't play local teams. Right, so I think the Hilltop matchup will be good just because we kind of know how Hilltop compares to other schools. And some of these schools in Michigan, it's like in Indiana, you're not quite sure because we don't know how talent really compares. As far as looking at Ohio, the state of Ohio high school football versus Michigan, I would say is probably generally a little bit better as far as talent in some of the teams. But I know the Ottawa Lake Whiteford that North Central plays at the end of the season, I believe that's a team that ended up beating Eden last year. And I'm looking at that team, Ottawa Lake Whiteford, right now, and they're 5-0 and they're blowing out everyone. And I believe they're a pretty big powerhouse in the smaller division in Michigan. So, I mean, you're looking at North Central. I don't think they're going to win that one. But you look at Erie Mason this week, who they play, they're 4-0. But again, it's like we don't know some of these teams in Michigan. So
you just kind of pull for them, and that's really it.
And you look at one of these other Michigan schools at this point, Petersburg, Summerfield, Michigan, they're 2-3. So, I mean, you look at just looking at records, I mean, that's got to be a winnable game. So, again, 6, possibly 7 wins coming up for North Central.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, which we've discussed multiple times in the past. It's really good for your – I'm not sure as far as if they have like a junior high program or whatnot, but I'm sure they have flag football. But just those kids that are in the elementary level now, and they see, hey, this varsity team, hey, let's go check out this game, and they're continuing to win. So it's just kind of actually what you want is you're building it from the ground up. So you're going to have all these kids in the upcoming years that just, hey, let's go play football. So,
and I was just looking up to for the community. Do you know how many people? What would you say the population is of Pioneer?
Oh boy,
5,000. Wow.
About 1,500 people.
1,500 people. Wow.
Like how excited if you're in that community awesome. Where I imagine. Obviously. It's not really it's a small town, but I mean, people are probably spread out, but I mean, people are going to talk about that. I mean, how exciting is that for a community of just under 1,500 people, 1,500 people? I mean, for your football team to just start in your community, gives people something to do on Friday nights in that area. I mean, that's just awesome.
It is great. Yep.
I had to look that up because I was curious. I was like, man, I'm curious on what the population of Pioneer, Ohio is, but that's awesome to see.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead. Let's move on to our next hot take here. And we'll probably discuss this a little bit in our predictions, but Montpelier will upset Northwood. And I kind of looked at this and, man, do I really feel for Montpelier, and do I want them to win? 100% yes, but I think Northwood's just going to be too much for them this week.
Yeah. I think Northwood coming off a big win last week against Hilltop, and I don't know. I don't think Montpelier's ready. Not yet. Maybe we're always rooting for them, but I just don't think it's going to happen.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think too, Coach Robinson's doing a good thing over there. It's so hard for a program that's struggled over the last few years to turn things around in an instant. I mean, it takes time, and I always say too, Rome wasn't built in a day. So I mean, it takes some time. Do I think that Montpelier will upset Northwood? No, but I think they might make it a close game. I mean, that's what I'm kind of thinking too. I mean, Montpelier's coming off their second win of the game, and I'm sure those kids are excited, and I'm sure they put up a good battle against Northwood. Let's go ahead. Let's move on to the next hot take. I looked at this one, and I wasn't sure if this was a gash towards Eden or not, but someone was saying out there Eden will miss the playoffs, and I was having to do some research and look here, and so Eden's currently 3-3 right now, and they sit at number 13 in Division 7 Region 26, and you look at some of these other schools, and again, it goes back to the point that there's 16 teams. I mean, that's a lot of teams in a region.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's to the point where it's kind of hard to miss the playoffs.
It is.
Do you know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of teams, but allowing 16 teams in every region that really opens the door, for teams to get in. And I mean, like you said, you have a losing record and still get in. So,
and I look too. I can't believe that looking at this, that Lipsick is sitting 19.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
If Lipsick gets in, you say maybe 14, 15, 16 seed. They might give you the number 1, 2, or 3 seed a run for their money.
Right.
I mean, I'm just shocked by looking at that.
I saw that earlier, and I was going to bring it up, and I was like, how is Lipsick 19th?
But that's getting back to Eden. I just don't know if. I mean, they're playing Hilltop. That's definitely a winnable game.
Right. Point wise, I don't know that's going to get you too many points.
No.
That's the problem.
I mean, you get your first round points, and you get points from Hilltop and North Baltimore, because I believe Hilltop beat North Baltimore, so you get a couple points there. I mean, them having one win if they beat them is better than no win. So I mean, that gives them some points. Yeah. That St. Paul Norwalk team, I mean, if they've played them in the past, if they beat them, I mean, that would get them a ton of computer points. Okay. That would definitely clinch playoffs, I would assume.
Yeah, I mean, if they knocked off Ottawa Hills, that would win, give them some playoff points too.
Definitely.
So, I mean, they can, but they got to win some games.
And honestly, though, for Eden to miss playoffs, I feel like they would have to try to miss playoffs. I mean, at this point, like the way things are set up, and even if they can get, like we said, a win against Hilltop, if they can pull off a Lakota team that's 1-5 right now, so there's 2 more wins that would put them at 5 wins, and then if they could pull off one against St. Paul or Ottawa Hills, I mean, I think that's guaranteed at that point.
I mean, if you look, just cap this off, Logan, but like if you're looking at Montpelier, they win this week. They're 21st now.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just you could be 16th.
Yeah, that's
or
crazy.
Close.
Yeah.
And then you have a couple more winnable games on your schedule. So if you're Coach Robinson in Montpelier, like, man, still got some points out there to get. So,
and just for comparison, looking at North Central, they sit at 10. You see who is above them at 9 is Lima Central Catholic, which they're 3-3, but we know how good of a team that they can be. And you have Pandora Gilboa at 4-2 and Edgerton at number 7. So, I mean, you're throwing North Central up with some of these teams that we know are good.
Right.
And you look at Pandora Gilboa, I mean, they played a tough game against Macomb. I know that we don't cover them, but they also beat Lipsick. They barely lost to Columbus Grove, and they beat Bluffton, and those are all teams that have some wins under their belt. So that's crazy just when you throw North Central as far as point standings into that. And that may be something to consider. So,
yeah, this is my favorite time of year right here. Again, it's the last 3 to 4 weeks, and you go to Joe's page there, and he's pretty much has everything summed up by Saturday morning. So,
yeah, and that's always a good. We like to use Joe Itel for those of you don't know. I mean, that man puts in. I mean, I can only imagine he's collecting scores hours and hours and hours and putting them in for points to be released, because the only thing is the state releases computer points, but it's not very easily accessible, and it's not as user friendly.
Right,
either.
it's not. No, not at all.
But he does a nice job at putting together a nice platform on his website. Let's go ahead. Let's move on to the next hot take. Delta will make a deep playoff run in Division 5, Region 18, and he wanted me to give him a shout-out. I know they keep this anonymous, but Alex Schaublin from Tenora High School. I said I'd give him a shout-out. I gave him a shout-out. So, Alec, I hope you're watching. So, what do you guys think about this one, Delta? I mean, we kind of discussed it in the past, but we've seen Delta week and week. So, what are your thoughts here?
Personally, myself, I Region 5. Region 18, Division 5 is just one of we've talked about it numerous times. A very, very tough division to be in, and I just don't see Delta making a deep run. I do see them maybe winning a game, depending on where they end up. I mean, if you end up 15, 16, it's not going to be good for you. But if you end up in that 8-9 realm,
which right now they're 9th, so that's kind of perfect for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah.
So I definitely can see them make it winning a game, maybe even 2. But I don't know what deep means for them.
Yeah, region, like as you said, Tony, that region is deep, like one win coming out of that, because that's just a gauntlet there, which we've discussed all season. This is whoever comes out of this region's probably your team to beat for state, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I would agree too. I mean, you look at it, and it's crazy to see that Coldwater is actually ranked number 3rd in the point standings, but time and time and again that they've been number 1 in the AP poll for the state in Division 5. So, I mean, potential state champion in Coldwater. Keith and I got to see Elmwood play personally, Elmwood again. They have a very good quarterback, very good running back, in Mason Oliver, and they had that. I can't remember what his receiver's name was, but they had some dogs that could play on both sides of the ball. And then we all saw Liberty Center play. So, I mean, you look at that. That's 3 quality teams right there. Archbold's still very good. Eastwood is undefeated still, and Eastwood and Elmwood have a big matchup coming up. So that will kind of show how that region's going to play out. And Huron, I know we don't know much about them, but they have some good wins on the year. So I still think that region's one of the toughest in the state. So
yeah, like you said, Logan, like you look at the rankings that were released Monday, like Coldwater is number 1, but then you go to this, which I think I actually would rely on the points pool a little more than the state rankings.
Is it the AP or coach? Is it a coach's poll?
I think this is the coach's poll.
And I feel like sometimes you look at that and it's so skewed. Like,
yeah, it's
some of these times. Like I look at that and you think sometimes that these coaches have no idea about some teams that are way out of their region.
And just give it to the assistant coach and says, "You take care of it." This week.
Right, yeah, type deal. But if Delta were to play at this moment, they would play North Union from Richwood, which I don't even know. I'm not sure where that's at exactly. But again, like Tony said, I mean, I definitely could see them. I would give them probably 70-80% chance of winning first round game, and possibly maybe 40-50 for the second round. But after that, like Tony said, I mean, I don't think they're getting past. Even if you look, Otsego is a 17 seed in that region, and Otsego only lost to Liberty Center by 9 points. So, I mean, and we know how good Liberty Center is, and I believe that was probably the closest margin that Liberty Center had all year. So, yeah, I just don't see Delta making a deep playoff run.
No.
All right, let's go ahead. Let's move on to the next one. Again, Defiance wins out with a big win over Wapak to end the season and host their first playoff game since 2003. Again, we kind of discussed it. Again, Defiance making the playoffs, which I think at this Brainerd it's a no doubt. But to beat Wapakoneta at the end of the season, and win. I mean, if they win that game, they're definitely hosting a playoff game because there's so many computer points on the line. But wow, that would be awesome, though. I mean, I think it's a possibility. We look in these next few weeks. I think Defiance has a very good and are very likely to win these next few weeks leading up to the Wapak game. And who's to say that they're on a roll? They're playing well. You know, they're getting the community behind them, and they go ahead and they pull the big upset. I mean, that would shake some things up in the WBL. So
Right.
Oh, yeah.
I think if Defiance wins against Wapak, they definitely host a playoff game. I think they're on the verge of maybe hosting a playoff game if they win all the games besides
without
that
that,
one. So I think that they definitely could come true. But if they beat Wapak, I think it's a no doubter.
Yeah, right now Defiance is 7th. So
As long as they take care of business between now
right.
and then.
that's almost like a pre-playoff game, really. I mean, in all seriousness.
You know, honestly, though, if I'm Defiance, I'm wanting to play that game week 10 because, like you said, you're priming the pump for playoff time. And, you know, once you get to playoffs, it's all quality opponents. And pretty much every team, I would say for the most part, other than some 1-16 seed matchups, can be kind of get out of hand. But, I mean, for the most part, I mean, there's a lot of good teams. A lot of the ball games are close. So, I mean, you have to be on your A++ game once it comes playoff time. Let's go on to our next hot take here. Holgate beats Stryker, and we talked about it a little bit. What a big – I feel like this is going to become a big rivalry over the years. I mean, you got two teams in Northwest Ohio, not terribly far from each other, but all from teams that we cover, and that's going to be a big matchup, and we'll get into it a little bit more in the Week 7 game predictions, but you guys have any thoughts on the Holgate and Stryker game and matchup?
Man, my only thought would be if I'm these ADs, I want to get together and move this to a Saturday night game. You know how many people would come to watch this game that really are intrigued by 8-man football?
Right.
I mean, serious.
Play under the lights. And
man.
I feel like when you play this game, I feel like this almost has to be a promotional event for the area as far as getting teams on board, make it an event, host some tailgate parties. I mean, I think this could be a big event in years to come. I mean, to really getting maybe some other schools on the border that continue to lose kids coming out and trying out for 11-man. I mean, maybe that makes a push, but I mean, I would love to see either at Holgate or Stryker, ADs get together, plan some events, you know, hype up this matchup, almost like a Tenora-Ayersville matchup or Defiance Napoleon. Make it into something like that.
This game's at Holgate, so you could, I mean, the venue at Holgate could hold a pretty good size because they're an old GMC team, and they have the visitor section over there back by the field.
Yeah.
Which I think where AJ scooped up a touchdown and ran it in about 30 yards over there in his last game. But yeah, man, that's a serious conversation to have. I mean, obviously you probably can't do it, but you have the whole Saturday night to yourself and you're trying to promote 8-man football, and I would go check it out.
Yeah.
Not serious.
Be a lot of fun.
I mean, I think, like I said, I think it would be fun too. I mean, especially for the kids. Like, I feel like too, because it's a new conference, these teams don't have rivals. I mean, they don't have those matchups. So let's make some. Let's hype it up. Let's get the kids. I mean, there's always something different about playing a rivalry game. I mean, your emotions are running a little higher. There's a little bit more on the line. I mean, there's just this tradition that you don't lose to your rival team, no matter what sport that is. And I would like to see something like that out of some 8-man. I think that would be pretty cool.
Well, we're putting it here right now on NWO Sports. This is now a rivalry game.
We'll be the first ones. We're making Stryker and Holgate a 8-man football rivalry game. So for all you out there, pick your side, and we'll go from there.
And you got two good quarterbacks, Caldwell from Stryker and McCord from Holgate. Plus, you got Levi Barnum from Stryker.
Yeah.
You got the athletes. You got the names out there. Boy, oh boy, that'd just be awesome to see this game.
And this
move.
is a message for all the fans from Stryker and Holgate. You better be there Friday supporting your team. So it's a big rivalry matchup as of now. So. Let's go ahead. Let's move on to the last hot take. And someone ended up sharing Evergreen who? ? So who wants to start with this one?
I'll start with it. I always want to put that in there because, guys, we talked about this. We looked at their schedules, and at the beginning of the year, we were kind of big on Evergreen and Coach Karchner over there and how good he was doing. And they came out, big win in the first week. North Baltimore 48-0. Then they beat Montpelier 41-7. Then boom, 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 boom. And we talked about that we'll see what Evergreen is when they get into their league play, because we all knew the NWO was tough, and they come out bang right up against Delta, then PH, then Wauseon, then Archbold, Bryan, and Liberty. I mean, they're playing the gauntlet basically.
They are,
and they're not faring too well, and it's it's tough with the new coach, but
looking at the rest of the schedule here coming up, I find it hard pressed that they're going to win another game until they hit week 10. They'll have a matchup against Swanton, and that one they could possibly win that. But I don't think they're going to beat Archbold. Don't think they're going to beat Liberty Center. And the way Bryan's been playing, I really doubt they're going to beat Bryan either.
But even if you look at that, so say they beat Swanton, that puts them at 3 wins. If they could happen to make a couple of games close, or even pull a game out of their hat and win one of those, how big of a program changer that would be, especially with Coach Karchner. And we talked to, he's a great coach, just like Coach Robinson over at Montpelier. But again, you're trying to make huge adjustments in year one as a head coach. I mean, it's going to be tough. You're going to deal with your valleys, but I mean, there's also those peaks. And man, if they could pull out a win against one of those 3 quality teams, that would be awesome to see for the Evergreen Vikings.
Like Tony said, he's run down the schedule. They had the Ottawa Hills game, which is a Thursday night, which they lost in the last, I think. Then they have a pick 6 that went the other way.
Yeah,
they were
had
trying
a
to tie it up there at the end.
Yeah, things kind of fell apart there.
Delta kicked that field goal right at the end to beat them by 2. So, then your heart of your conference schedule comes into play. Patrick Henry, Wauseon, Archibald, Bryan, LC. So, we were kind of high on Evergreen, but still, they're still building the program, and it's not really.
And honestly, too,
you can't say it's not successful.
No, and you think, I mean, like you said, Ottawa Hills game could have potentially went the other way. I know they didn't have one of their key players. Ottawa Hills didn't, but I mean, say that game goes the other way, that gives them 3 wins. Delta, if they hold on and win that game, that puts them at 4 wins. So instead of being 2-4, they're possibly 4-2. I mean, in a first year, and even their losses, you look at Patrick Henry, they lost 0-26, and that was at Patrick Henry. At Wauseon, they lost 8-33. In years past, I'm just curious too. We'll have to look back at what they were last season when they played some of these teams. But I'm willing to bet that these scores are a lot closer than what they were last year.
I would say so.
I'm just curious for my own personal knowledge. Let me look it up real quick. Evergreen's record from last year. I'll pull this up real quick.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy for Evergreen, and like I said, we were talking about them. We kind of had them high on the radar a little bit, like, hey, Evergreen, and then just this kind of fell off the table once they hit conference play. Which, like I said, we talked. They were going to be tough schedule. So
okay, here we go. Looking here, so just for comparison, so we've seen their scores this year. Ottawa Hills, they lost 49-19 last year. I know it's a new year, new season, so I mean, there's a huge improvement there. You look at Delta, they lost 43-14 last year. And Delta wasn't – I mean, they were a playoff team last year, but they weren't the greatest. They were a 16 seed. And then you look at Patrick Henry, they lost 31-0. Wauseon, they lost 47-7. Archbold, they lost 47-0. And Bryan, they lost 45-14. And Liberty Center, 27-0. So, I mean, if you look at that and they cut those losses down, I would say that's definitely an improvement. I know there's no such thing as a moral victory per se, but I mean, there is in that sense when you're trying to get a program going.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that concludes our hot takes here. So again, continue to send those out, and we like doing them. So definitely our favorite segment of the podcast. So if you have any fun or creative hot takes, go ahead and send those in. Let's go ahead. We'll move on to Game 7 game predictions. So we'll get this pulled up here and tell you who we're picking for this upcoming week. I'll go ahead and start. Looking at the first game here, Archbold 5-1 at Evergreen 2-4. Again, we just got off this topic about Evergreen. I don't think it's as big of a blowout as in years past, but again, Archbold, their only loss is to Liberty Center. Coach Dominic's going to have the boys over in Archbold ready to play. I'm taking Archbold, and I think they win handily, but not as much as they did last season. So I'm going Archbold.
Going with the streaks.
Yep, Archbold.
Archbold for me.
And Bryce said Archbold, and he cannot pick against Archbold. So Bryce is now an Archbold homer, even though he went to Tenora High School. So Bryce is going with Archibald. Looking at the next game, Wauseon 4-2 at Patrick Henry 4-2. That game's kind of intriguing. I looked at that and two teams. You know, Patrick Henry's coming off a loss to Bryan, and I'm curious to see how the Patriots respond. And, you know, Wauseon made a change at quarterback, threw in Trey Parsons. He seems to be doing a nice job there, and maybe they're starting to figure some things out over there in Wauseon. But I had to really think about this one. But I think at the end of the day, Coach Inselman is going to come away with a win for Patrick Henry. I mean, it's at home. That's a tough place to play at, too. And so I'm going Patrick Henry this game.
I'm right with you, Logan. Taking Patrick Henry. Quarterback change at Wauseon. Kind of a little spark plug for them. So we'll see what the Indians can do. But taking the Patriots.
This was definitely a tough one to decide on for sure. Really what it came down to is playing at Patrick Henry. It's going to be a heck of a venue for Wauseon to walk into and try to get the job done. So I'm just going to go with Patrick Henry there for their home field advantage.
Boy, I picked Patrick Henry, but I'm really on the fence on this one because I really think Wauseon might have what they need to take out Patrick Henry. But for now, I'm with Patrick Henry.
And Bryce went Wauseon, and I think Bryce's strategy is, A, he likes to stir up some conversation between us because he's always going against us, or B, he's really trying to catch up on some points at this point in the season. So we'll see how that goes. But Bryce is the only one that went Wauseon. We all went Patrick Henry. Next game, Liberty Center 6-0 at Bryan 3-3. Again, Bryan's coming off a huge win against Patrick Henry. I still think Liberty Center's, their defense is A++ right now. They're running the ball well with Matthew Orr. Again, the Cruz boys I think he's leading the NWOL in interceptions as well. But on the other hand, Bryan's got Sam Harold and Jace Kepler. I still think Liberty Center's just a little too much right now, and Liberty Center's firing on all cylinders, and Coach Moeller's got the guys playing well. I'm going Liberty Center. I think they kind of take a little steam off Bryan this week.
Yeah, like we said earlier, Bryan, you just don't know what you're going to get, I guess. Would we be surprised if we go down our scoreboard at halftime and it's Liberty Center 35, Bryan nothing? No. Or would we be surprised if it's 14-14 at the half?
Yeah, you
don't know what you're going to get from Coach Redhead and the Bears, but taking the Liberty Center Tigers.
Yeah, Bryan's kind of unpredictable a little bit here. They're kind of that X factor coming into this game, but the one consistency that we do know is that Liberty Center is just dominating football right now, and I don't think that changes this week. I think they run the score up a little bit on Bryan just to show that they're capable of doing damage.
I agree with you, AJ. I think exactly what you said. I think Bryan's, like you said, is kind of a little sleeper, as we mentioned earlier. But I think, like you said, Liberty Center is just they're playing strong right now. So LC for me.
The one thing for Bryan going into this game is just know you're probably playing the number one team in Northwest Ohio, possibly even the state coming into this game. We talk about whoever comes out of that region, Liberty Center is sitting at the top of that list right now. So you're potentially playing one of the best teams in the state in your region. So go into that with that mentality that you've got nothing to lose here. Go out and prove yourself.
And looking at the last pick here, Bryce had Liberty Center. So Liberty Center from all of us. Next game is a big one. It's going to be our NWO Sports Game of the Week. It ranks up there with some of your top rivalry games, Ohio State, Michigan, and that game is Ayersville 5-1 at Tenora 4-2. So a big game coming up, and we discussed too. And man, I think this is a tough matchup. Ayersville's playing very well. Tenora's offense, that's the thing that gets me. It scares me is just the lack thereof. There's a lot of question marks. I know I'm a big Tenora guy. I graduated from Tenora. I'm always rooting for them. Believe me, 100%. It hates me to say this, but I'm going Ayersville this week. So I'm going the Pilots, and I think they win by possibly a couple scores.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on that one, Logan. Just this is a rivalry that burns in our hearts as football players for Tenora, that you don't ever want to go against Tenora. But I've got to say I've been very disappointed with Tenora's offense. I think that's clear from just about everybody in the area. Tenora's offense has just not been getting it done. Nothing's changed. No changes have been made. So, and I don't think they're going to be made this game. So I've got to go with Ayersville.
Hoping somebody just get me again. And when I filled this out, I did type in Ayersville, but I have it highlighted right now. Man.
Well, I'll jump in, Keith. It is a very tough game, and I agree with both you guys. And we talked about it earlier. Tenora's offense is really sputtering, but and I just, I've told people before I bleed green. I think, but I think deep down in my heart, I think Tenora's defense is going to come up big against Ayersville and probably score twice, and that's going to be enough to propel Tenora to the win. That would
definitely be the deciding factor there. If they can get some defensive scores.
I'm going Rambos.
Man, oh man.
Keith, decide on your pick yet? This is like that show, what is it, Survivor, where you get the last person and they're trying to determine who's getting kicked off or whatever.
It is. This is so hard. It's like, man.
Wow.
Seriously.
You hung up.
It is. I mean, I know what I have here, but.
It is Tenora Rams Live. It's not Ayersville's
I realize that. Also, can't ever say that we're homers. Trust me, by any means whatsoever. Shoot. This is like who has the best team.
I'll tell you what. The one thing about going with Ayersville for this week is it's kind of a win-win situation no matter what happens with that game, because if Tenora wins, then awesome, Tenora wins. Yeah. But if Ayersville wins, well, we got the pick right.
Yes.
Ayersville has been playing really well and running the ball well and doing things that they need to do, but I think Tenora's defense is going to stifle them, and I could be wrong, and I think it's going to be enough. I just don't.
The thing, too, with this game is Blake Honstein from Ayersville has been playing very well right now, and the thing, too, is
last minute pick.
Oh, man. Keith, announce it right now. Who'd you go with?
I changed it. I went with Tony. I went with the Rambos. I had Ayersville in there for 2 days, and just giving it more thought, I'm thinking valid points by everybody here. We'll be doing the game. Tune in Friday night at 7 o'clock. Baton Stevens kickoff.
Yep.
Science excavating pregame.
It's going to be a fun game to watch. It's
going to be. We can talk about this game for the next 2 hours, and you can tell it's 9:30, and we don't want to do that. It's just you just take the records, you throw them out the window. You don't. Talent wise, yes, Ayersville has this series has been dominated by the Rams the last 15 years. Yeah. And you just look, Ayersville's click on all cylinders on offense, but have they played a defense like Tenora? Like everybody, and you got Javen Gaines back.
True.
So
I think you're going to see a pick six. I want to predict it.
If Tenora is going to win, they have to have some help, though.
Absolutely.
Special teams or defense, because like we said, their offense, they got to have some help.
This is probably one of those games. We're spending too much time talking on it, but it's like the Daytona 500. It's like the Super Bowl for everybody involved here. It's probably going to be like a defensive. Tenora special teams are actually pretty decent, other than the block punt we saw. But you got good field goal kicker, decent punter. Our return game is above average, I'm going to say, kickoff and on punt returns. But I'm taking Tenora. Changed my pick to the Rams.
And Bryce had Ayersville, so we're split across that one. So. Again, like AJ said, for us that picked Ayersville, I guess it's a win-win because
somebody will gain a game or lose a game.
We're either gaining a game or the Rambos win, which is a good thing. So
man.
You got some cushion, Keith. You'll be all right.
I got two games.
Let's go ahead. Let's move on to the next game. I know we spent a lot of time on it, but again, it's a big rivalry game, and we're all from Sonora, so a little extra time granted for that. Next game, Antwerp 6-0 at Wayne Trace 2-4. And what I've been finding out about this game is there's a little bit of a rivalry between this. I guess I never realized that they're both pretty close to each other, but there's a lot of smack talk among multiple sports. I know during baseball season there was, and I know on social media there's always stuff between these two schools. But I'm kind of excited though to see what Wayne Trace brings to the table. I mean, they lost to Sonora and by under 7 points. Yep. I mean, that's pretty impressive. And Wayne Trace is they've held their own throughout the season, and I still say that their 2-4 record does not accurately represent them. But I'm going to Antwerp. I think Coach Hale is doing an excellent job over there, and Carson Ultimus. I mean, how can you pick against him? And you got Landon Brewer and Reed Leachy and Parker Moore and Cyrus Gale. I mean, the list goes on and on of athletes. But I think Antwerp wins, but I think Wayne Trace shocks some people with what the final score is of that game. I'm going to Antwerp.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, Logan. Taking the Archers.
Yeah, I'm going with Archers here. I think they're going to take it.
Yeah, I'm picking the Archers, but I think Wayne Trace. We'll see if that turnover thing that you talked about, AJ, comes into play here. I mean, that could be a game changer, but I just think Antwerp's going to be too powerful.
And Bryce went Antwerp, so Antwerp across the board. Next game, Edgerton 5-1 at Fairview 0-6. Again, we know Fairview's been struggling. Coach McCord is doing his all over there to get the boys on the win column. I just don't think this week it happens. I think Edgerton comes away with a win. Coach Flagel's doing a nice job over there. Edgerton's coming away with a win this one. I think it's pretty big, so I'm going Edgerton Bulldogs.
Yeah, I'm with you, Logan. Taking the Bulldogs. Yeah,
it's going to be a 40-point game in my opinion, so Edgerton.
Edgerton as well.
And Bryce had Edgerton. Next game, Paulding 1-5 at Hicksville 0-6. Again, I think this is a competitive game for both the teams. I think at least Hicksville has a pretty good chance in this game. But at the end of the day, I've seen some of the fight and competitiveness about Paulding. I'm going the Paulding Panthers, and even Bryce was telling me last year when they played Paulding, I know Paulding lost. He said, man, those kids from Paulding hit hard. And, I mean, that says a lot. I mean, against last year as a Tenora team that – they had some really good talent, and Bryce saying that, man, those kids hit hard. I mean, that just shows what kind of program they have over there. So I'm going Paulding Panthers on this one.
Took the Panthers as well.
Yeah, Paulding started out with a little bit of a rocky start with some changes happening, but I think they get their second win this week.
Yeah, and I'm going to go with Paulding as well. I just don't think Hicksville's offense is potent enough yet.
And Bryce had Paulding. Paulding across the board. Next game, Defiance 4-2 at Lima Bath 0-6. I think Defiance is firing on all cylinders right now. It's great to see those kids over there have some success, and I think Defiance walks away with this game pretty handedly, and I think that's a good confidence booster for the Bulldogs over there. So I'm going Defiance big time in this game.
Taking the Dogs.
Yeah, got to go with Defiance here.
I think Defiance.
And Bryce had Defiance. Let's look at the next game here. Napoleon 2-4 at Springfield 1-5. Napoleon coming off a win from last week, and I think they continue it this week. Springfield struggled this year, and we've said time and time again, Napoleon's got some good athletes over there. And Keith brought up the point about their score against Liberty Center. I mean, they kept that fairly close. So I think they're starting to get things coming around, but I'm going Napoleon this game.
Taking Coach Sweary and the Cats.
Yep, let's go Wildcats.
I think Williams has another big game, so Cats for me.
And Bryce had Napoleon. So Napoleon from all of us. Next game, Lima Shawnee 1-5 at Van Wert 5-1. I hate to say it, but for Lima Shawnee, but Aiden and Pratt and the boys over there at Van Wert are gonna, I think, roll all over Shawnee, especially being a home game. And I mean, who wouldn't want to go to a Van Wert game where they sell 50-50 all week and you have a chance to win a 50-50 for $14,000? So I'm going Van Wert, and they're going to win big.
Yeah, I'm with you. Taking the Cougs.
Yep, Van Wert from me.
And Van Wert.
Bryce had Van Wert too. Next game, Salina 4-2 at Ottawa Glandorf. Again, this is kind of an intriguing game looking at it right away. I mean, I know Salina has a 4-2 record, but I kind of look at some of those wins, and you look at Ottawa Glandorf, and we talk about the inconsistencies they've had throughout the season. I think this is the week Ottawa Glandorf Titans get it done. They're at home. They've got that new turf from Maumee Bay Turf.
Awesome.
I think they bring a decent crowd. I'm going, in my heart, I'm going Ottawa Glandorf. I think they get the win, and they get their second win of the season. So big win for the program is who I'm going with.
Yeah, very valid points, Logan. Wow. I took Salina, but yeah, OG, I mean, would we be surprised if OG won? I wouldn't personally, no.
Nope, I wouldn't be surprised if they won either, but they've just kind of disappointed me a little bit this year. This could definitely be the game where they, make me eat my words a little bit, but I got to go with Salina here.
I was hoping you say maybe this is the game that puts me past Tony and the rankings. So
I want to change I'm going to go to OG. No.
Oh, okay. I see how it is.
No, I'm taking Salina.
And Bryce had Salina. So I went against everyone in that one. So that's going to be my big game this week. So OG, he's got to win this game. I'm rooting for you. Look at the next game. Hilltop 1-5 at Eden 3-3. Again, I know Hilltop broke their losing streak, but again, Eden I think is just going to be too much. They're playing at home. I think they win pretty large margin. So I'm going to the Eden Bombers.
I'm with you. Coach Owen starting a playoff tune-up.
Yeah, he's going to call in an airstrike on Hilltop here and drop some bombs.
Funny.
I try.
Yeah, I tried giving Hilltop some kudos last week and didn't pan out for me, so Eden for me as well.
And Bryce had Eden. So Eden from all of us. Next game, Montpelier 2-4 at Northwood 3-3. This one was kind of tough. I spent some time thinking of it and researching. At the end of the day, I'm going Northwood. I know Coach Robinson's probably going to be messaging me after Montpelier wins again, and he messaged me last time. Should have went with Montpelier. I know it, but I hope you guys prove me wrong again this week, but I'm going Northwood.
Same.
Yep, Northwood.
Northwood for me.
But on the other hand, my brother Bryce, he is going Montpelier, so you have some love going towards you. So Bryce is the only one that had Montpelier there. Next game, Erie Mason, Michigan, 5-0 at North Central, 4-2. Another game that required some research just because the differences between Michigan and Ohio football, and we really don't know the quality of teams that Erie Mason plays. But how could you not root for North Central and the boys over there in Pioneer? I mean, what they're doing is awesome. Again, they've had quite a few good games, and they've been winning pretty handily this year, which I've been pretty impressed with them. But I'm going the North Central Eagles, and fly, Eagles, fly.
Taking the Eagles as well.
Yeah, going with Northwood.
Northwood? You're on the wrong path. You're on the wrong
Oh, sorry, North Central. My bad.
North part's
Central.
right.
Got the North.
North part
I'm thinking about switching to Erie Mason just to make it different, Logan. Just to, you know what? I am. I'm going to go Erie. Just to change it up, just to be different.
Okay.
I got to gain one back on you.
Trying to be like Bryce.
Erie Mason.
Right?
Bingo. I'm in.
All right. Tony submitted his pick, so Bryce had North Central too. So Tony is trying to gain a little bit of leverage here. Next game, let's look at Columbus Grove 4-2 at Crestview 3-3. We know Crestview's dropped their last 3 games. Columbus Grove had a big win over Lipsick, and they won handily. I know it's at Crestview, but I think Columbus Grove wins, and they win pretty big. So I'm going the Bulldogs in this game.
Yeah, this probably would have been an intriguing matchup 3 weeks ago.
Yes,
now
yes.
It looks like all Coach Schaefer and Columbus Grove.
Yep. Got to go with Columbus Grove on this one.
And I picked Columbus Grove also.
And Bryce had Columbus Grove. So Columbus Grove from all of us. A few more games here. Bluffton 4-2 at Lipsick 3-3. Again, this one's kind of intriguing. I know Lipsick's dropped a tough matchup against Columbus Grove, but Bluffton's been kind of rolling here as of late. I think at the end of the day, it's at Lipsick. I think Lipsick ends up, they get back on the right track and they end up with a win. So I'm going the Lipsick Vikings.
I took the Vikings as well.
Just kind of tossing this around. I was originally going to go with Bluffton just because Bluffton has been kind of on a roll here lately, and Lipsick is coming off that big loss to Columbus Grove. But looking at some of the matchups, the common opponents they've played, even some of the ones that Lipsick has lost to, they've lost to smaller margins than what Bluffton lost to, and then Lipsick's wins have been by bigger margins than some of Bluffton's wins on common opponents. So I've got to go with Lipsick.
Lipsick for me.
And you know what, Keith? You mentioned it earlier, but Bryce is doing Bryce things, and he's going Bluffton. So Bryce is.
I was there. I'm telling you, I was there. I just after I watched the Lipsick and Columbus Grove game a little bit on TV there, and they talked about Lipsick averaging 450 yards of offense, and I changed my mind.
Yeah, I agree. But again, that's another one of those games that if Bluffton were to make it close or come out with a win, it wouldn't necessarily surprise us, I feel like. Last 11-man game here, Swanton 1-5 at Delta 4-2. Swanton's has their struggles throughout the year, and Delta's impressed us this year. But I think Delta, with being at home, again, home field advantage is always huge in sports. I'm going Delta, and I think they win pretty handedly.
Taking Delta.
Delta for me.
Go Panthers.
And Bryce said Delta. So Delta from all of us. Well, we've only got one 8-man game this week. And we need like a drum roll here.
It's like that big rivalry.
Yes, big rivalry as of now, as of this podcast, as soon as it's released. So we have Stryker 4-1 at Holgate 4-1. And this one, wow, this was a tough one. I was back and forth. I'm telling you what, you guys better get out there. We're making this the Defiant, or what do we want to say? Northwest Ohio Mega Bowl is what this is going to be. The Northwest Ohio Mega Bowl. So Stryker and Holgate. Anyways, I thought hard on this one. I think these are two good matchups, two very good teams, very well coached. I was really back and forth, but I'm going Holgate on this one. So what do you guys pick?
I took Stryker. I mean, I would just like to see this game. I mean, this is seriously, this is a great opportunity for this 8-man just to move this thing to Friday or Saturday. Pick wise, yeah, I took Stryker, but I'm just thinking, I'm like looking at the big picture. I mean, seriously, just to take the opportunity and go with it.
I kind of agree with you, Logan. Here, I'm going to go with Holgate. I'm coming off that big win against Fort Wayne. I mean, not by a big margin, but knocking them off a little bit.
That's what I really looked at.
They've got some momentum coming in now, so I'm going with Holgate.
Yeah, my only thing I was looking at, the Holgate's playing at home, and if it is a rivalry game, they could put some people in the stands. Like I said, Holgate's got some place over there, but I just think Levi Barnum and those guys are going to be too strong for them, so I went with Stryker.
And Bryce had Holgate, so we were really split on that game. But anyways, we're calling it now rivalry game. I guess now I call it the Northwest Ohio Sports Mega Bowl. So get out there and watch this game. So we're hyping this 8-man up right now.
Oh, shoot.
Well, that concludes our Week 7 game predictions. So closing thoughts from you guys going into this Friday and ending the podcast here.
No, I think we summed up Week 7 pretty well today. It's still can't believe it's Week 7.
Keith, guys got anything?
Boy, yeah, this Tenora-Ayersville game is going to be great. I mean, it is. It's going to be like old school smash mouth football. Let's hope for a competitive game. And more in depth though, like, thanks to everybody here amongst us and Logan for all the work he does. Trust me, I personally know how much all this takes, and just amount of research and effort that he puts into this is actually amazing.
Amen.
So thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys coming on. I mean, I always like you guys busting me a little bit here and there with some of my stuff, but it's a great time. And like I said, it always goes back to supporting these athletes, promoting the sports. Again, these kids put in all this effort. They deserve all this publicity as much as we can give. So, and we like to have fun with it.
It's funny because we discussed this last week. I think me and Tony did, and AJ and whatnot. It's like, hey, how much you guys make for doing all this? we do it because we love what we do. I mean, we don't make a single cent, really.
Exactly.
Anything that like our at least sponsorships for like me, I turn that into better equipment. I mean,
that's, like everything goes back into it. I mean, it's like with sponsorships, you're not making a killing off it. There's no way. It's not even enough to really anymore buy a tank of gas with today's prices, but. Again, like there's so much that goes into everything with the equipment and staying on top of information, and there's just a lot. But again, it's well worth it, and I know it's a lot of work, and believe me, and Keith knows too. It takes a lot of time to put in the research. But again, it's a fun time, and I appreciate talking some football with you guys.
Yeah, we have a great time on Tuesday nights and Friday nights. I mean, even like afterwards, like on Friday nights, we're still texting about other games in the area. So it's a great time.
And I feel like too, it not only makes us, it's not only a fun time, but it also, I know it definitely has improved our broadcast for Tenora Rams Live, because we're much more knowledgeable about these area teams, and it allows us to have a better following of these kids in the area too. So,
you know, and just, you know, like I was point out, like last week we talked about, there was only a kind of a handful of games in the area that were, kind of those kind of big games. But I looked at the schedule this week. You got Liberty Center, Bryan could turn out to be a big one. Wasion, PH, obviously Ayersville, Sonora game.
Right.
Homecoming at Sonora, it's going to be a big crowd. That Sonora's going to pack the house. So I know they're doing pre-sale tickets. So again, get there early if you want to. If you don't want to park a mile and a half away. Antwerp at Wayne Trace, who knows what can happen there. Just a lot of big games in the area that, from last week to this week, just, you pick your battle and go watch one of those games like Logan's been saying. Get out and watch the games.
I was just going to comment on that. I was going to say, I'm going to make it a point every podcast now to get out and support those kids and those sports, because all the effort, and it just makes it a much better environment and a much better game when there's bigger crowds and you're getting your community support. So
and the kids deserve it. I mean, like you said, Logan, they work hard. They get out there every week and they bust their butts, and they should be being watched by more than just their parents.
Yeah, and that's not just football. That's all sports in high school. Get out and visit a few games, whether that be basketball, football, softball, whatever, swimming, diving. Get out there and support the kids. I mean, it's definitely awesome when you start bringing bigger crowds. So, and the kids put in a lot of effort. So, get on out there. Weather's supposed to be, I think, what would you say? You guys said it's supposed to be
66 or something.
Upper 60s.
Perfect fall weather. Throw on your sweatshirt, jacket, some sweatpants. Go enjoy a game, and then maybe have a bonfire after.
Absolutely.
So we're gonna be on the roof. We'll be on the roof again. Hopefully, maybe we don't build a bonfire up there, but
I would say I don't think the school would appreciate it, but you guys might be sending smoke signals over there. I'll be down in Dayton at a wedding, but maybe send some smoke signals to me on some score updates. So, all right. Well, that concludes our NWO Sports Podcast for the week. We would like to thank all of our sponsors: 3Chord, Bat & Stevens Body Shop, Tenora Rams Live, Jimenez Basketball Academy, Fairchild Family Chiropractic, NWO Basketball, and Crystal Vasquez of Amerimaid Realty. Again, we would like to give a special thanks to Jeff Batt for allowing us to use this amazing new facility at Bat & Stevens Body Shop for today's podcast and future podcasts. Again, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next NWO Sports Podcast in the near future, and go ahead and share. Edit. Go ahead and share. So thanks for watching.